tell you, I have never told a contractor they're charging too much. You're only going to be limited by your self-esteem and your ability to communicate the value of your services.
Welcome to the Cleaning Up Podcast, Millionaire Secrets of the Home Services Industry, brought to you by me, Ron Holt, CEO and founder of Two Maids and a Mop, America's fastest growing cleaning company. I get a chance to sit down with home service industry pros and other entrepreneurial leaders so they can share their stories, their insight, their experiences. It's so much fun. You're going to learn so much, and you're going to be inspired to take your small business into a national brand just like I did. Okay, guys, welcome to another exciting episode of the Cleaning Up Podcast, Millionaire Secrets of the Home Services Industry. Of course, I'm Ron, CEO and founder of Two Maids and a Mop. And with us today is Ellen Rohr. Wait till you hear about Ellen. Ellen has seen it all when it comes to consumer services. At one point, her and her husband, along with a partner, ran a plumbing business. It was an independent plumbing business, but a very successful one in Park City, Utah. She eventually used the success from that to find herself in another role as the president and CEO of a franchise system. Things went so well there, she decided to do it on her own years later. And today, Ellen is the president of Zoom Drain Franchise Company. And on top of all of that, she's the author of 4 amazing business books that really have a lot of impact on the consumer services industry. So Ellen, you're a rock star. There's no doubt about it. So welcome to the Cleaning Up Podcast.
You know, you live long enough, you end up with a CV, man. So I'm happy to share from, as they say, my experience, strength, and hope. And I am really admiring of what you've done. And I listen to a ton of podcasts. So it's an honor to be here and unpack a little bit of what I've learned and learn from you too.
You bet. Well, we're going to nerd out today if you're cool with it.
Yay. Okay, good.
All right.
We're starstruck. We're fanning out.
So every time I talk to someone that's just killed it in the home services industry, no matter if it's HVAC, cleaning, lawn service, whatever, in your case, plumbing, and now the draining cleaning.
Yeah.
No matter what consumer service, no matter what it is, I always like to start with this question because I always know the answer. I'm guessing you were just like me. And when you were raised as a young child, at one point in your life, you said, I am going to own a drain business, right?
No. In fact, I didn't grow up in a handy family. We called people. You know, my dad wasn't handy. And so the toilet didn't work and we called somebody, or, you know, we needed a spring cleaning. We called somebody. So I thought all of these things were just miraculous. Someone would come and fix things. And then I married a plumber, and this I'm sure is the path many people in my industry take. Certainly a lot of women take, just to be stereotypical. I'm a plumber's wife. That's how I got introduced to the trades. And when I did, the things that I love about my husband, I love about tradespeople. They know how to make things happen. Before we got on, I talked about my brother's house blew down in a tornado once upon a time. Everybody's fine, but it was this traumatic moment. Well, who do you think they call? They call my husband. They call tradespeople. These are the people who know how to make sure the gas is turned off, that we're going to get water where it isn't. So I just fell in love with people who do dirty jobs, who are willing to do things that others won't or can't do. When you flush a toilet, it is a miracle. Like, how do we keep good water from bad water in these cities with tens of millions of people? Like, it's just never lost on me how important, essential, how wonderful the dirty jobs industry is. And now more than ever, with so many businesses shutting down, ours has boomed. And I'm sure yours is too. People want clean more than ever. And I'm grateful to be in this wonderful industry. And I don't know a thing about the actual work. Like, I can't pick up a channel locks or run a sewer machine or any of those things. My job is really to champion the tradespeople and make sure they make a great living doing it, that we develop careers, not just jobs. And I do everything I can, including our moment together right now, to make sure I honor those folks who are on the front lines in our industries.
Totally agreed. So you've got a great story. It's really fun, and it winds through really different industries within the home services space. So tell everyone what makes you such a legend in this industry?
A legend. I'm a legend in my own mind. That's for sure. I have had the most interesting career. I before I got into a business of my own, I was a kid who started working early. I probably had 50 jobs. I used to be a windsurfer instructor and a ski patroller, and I've had 150 restaurant jobs. It seems I was an oyster shucker for a while. I've done all sorts of interesting stuff, and as a result, I am that fence testing, troublemaking, not going to stick around very long employee. I'm still that guy at heart. And I think that served me well in my career because I've always been conscious of what it feels like to be on the front lines, very often underappreciated, underpaid, never asked their opinion, invisible to the people at the top of the org chart. That was me for years and years. And so, of course, I caused trouble. And in the very few instances, Ron, where a boss saw me and asked my opinion and called me out on my nonsense, I played. I came to the table. And so I also recognized the importance of that, of feeling like you mattered in a career. So given that, I end up marrying my husband, the plumber, and we have a baby. And for me, that changed everything. Do you have kids? Are you
Absolutely.
a dad?
Two perfect kids, 5 and 9 years old.
I have a perfect kid too. Oh, isn't it, and did that change your life?
100%. in a great way,
people.
But yes.
Oh, nothing. It's fine. Nothing will change. You'll be fine. You'll be at work on Monday. It changes things. And for me, it changed like this feeling of being responsible. I used to never be responsible for anyone but myself and what was going to be fun for today. I didn't think at all beyond the moment. And so having a kid, this is when I thought, hey, I got to make some money. I got to put dinner on the table. So I started to develop a career in the restaurant industry. And I tell you what, to this day, anyone who has restaurant experience, all life lessons can be learned in the restaurant. It's a great place to cut your teeth for any position you'll have later. So anyway, I'm doing that. And my husband, the plumber, has my husband's name's Hot Rod. So, that's why I married him. What's your name, baby? And he said Hot Rod. So of course I married him.
That's right.
And he and his partner had a little plumbing company called Hot Rod and Yawks. His friend's name was Yawks. And the two of them had their own gig going. I had my own gig going until this fateful moment where my husband's partner literally worked himself into a stress-induced health crisis and died at age 33. So Yawks was, one of those guys who worried a lot, had a hard time delegating, took everything to heart. And on a Friday afternoon, he said he didn't feel well. He'd worked about 100 hours that week. And I just thought, he needed to take a day off. It'd be fine. And next day he goes to the hospital, and on Sunday he died. And Hot Rod and I are just looking at each other like, what just happened? And so at that point, Hot Rod says to me, I've never really liked being in business for myself. I like the wrench turning, like the craft and the skill and the trade work. But I'm going to go work for someone else. And this is when I do a really stupid thing. And my life is a series of mistakes and recoveries. And this one was that I said to him, no, I have a college degree. I have all this experience in business. I'm a restaurant manager. I'm going to quit my real job. You and I are going to go into business together. And you turn wrenches. I'll count money. We'll get rich. That was the game plan. And none of that happened.
No, it sounds like it was it was all flowing for this perfect ending.
Yeah, no, none of that happened. We ended up hating on each other. He was working all the time. I would say we don't have any money, and he would hear I'm not good enough, right? I'm not working hard enough. There was all this stress. And what I found is, the best businesses I know are family businesses, and the worst businesses are family businesses, because even to this day, like, we did so much damage to our relationship. We're still married, and we probably wouldn't be if we hadn't, changed direction. And, that's still part of the story. But, we did a lot of damage to our relationship because you can do things to people you love, your parents, your kids, your husband and your wife, that you would never do to an employee. And that's something to watch for. I'm sensitive to the plights of family businesses. Again, it can be an awesome construct, but it's also fraught with some landmines. And we stepped on every one. So this is where the story starts to get good. After, I quit my real job. Now I'm working with Hot Rod. We have no money. I'm not paying myself. He's barely making any money. Our guys aren't making any money. And I find an article in a magazine written by one of my greatest mentors. His name is Frank Blau, Blau. And look up Frank, Google Frank, and you will find a crusty Milwaukee union plumbing contractor who made a lot of money and shared generously as to how he did it. And he wrote a column for a trade magazine. Now, tip number one of our conversation is that trade magazines are awesome because smart people in your industry tell you how to do it. And that's what happened to me. I read this article by Frank, and it was on how much should a contractor charge. And I followed the math in the article. Now this will blow your mind when I tell you this formula that changed my life, Ron. He suggested that you add up all your costs of doing business and charge more than that.
He's a genius. Would have never thought of that.
Well, I then was prompted to write him a letter and say, "Dear Mr. Blau, please help me. My husband and I are hating on each other. We're not making any money. We're in debt up to our eyeballs. And everything you just said in your magazine column was wrong. Because you don't know my cheap customers. You don't know my guys who could never charge those prices. You're just wrong. And here's why." And I spent 2 pages telling him that he's wrong. So God bless him. He calls me up and I answer the phone and he says, "Honey, you have your head." This is like his opening hello. How are you? He tells me where my head is, Ron, and it's a dark place. And I'm like, "Who is this?" And he says, "This is Frank Blau. I'm reading your letter. I get a lot of dumb letters. Yours takes the cake. Why don't you do this? Why don't you shut your business down and let your people go? Save them from whatever nonsense you think you're doing over there. You think you're so smart." I mean, it was like a barrel of bricks he dropped on my head. I ended up hanging up on him. I said, "You know what? I don't need this." I got off the phone. So Hot Rod comes home later that night and I'm telling him, with shaky voice, this guy called and he yelled at me and he's like, "I think you should call that guy back." One, probably to apologize, and 2, that we don't know what we're doing. And so like the next day, sniffling, red-rimmed eyes, I call him back and I just like laid low, say, "Will you help me?" I get emotional talking. Every time I tell this story, I get emotional because it was such a generous thing for him to say yes. And so he taught me how to read and use a balance sheet and a profit and loss. He taught me how to keep score in business. He got past all of my objections. You got to charge what the market will bear. People aren't going to stand for those prices. They're going to get 3 bids. All of my stinking thinking. He just disproved with the math. You show me, Ellen, how you can charge what you're charging and make any money. What evidence do you have that your game plan is working? And being smart is not always helpful because since then, since I took the medicine, I raised my prices and we can get into this a little bit more, like how this journey went. But since I have, and I've now, made it my life's mission to help other contractors, like now I feel like I've got to share this life-changing information. Since I did that, it's just so much easier. And I had no mathematical or empirical evidence that charging what the going rate would work. And so when I would come back to Frank, I would say, "Well, how can that guy do it? How my competitor charges 1/3 of what I charge? How is he doing it?" And he would answer me this: "I don't know." Maybe his wife won the lottery. Maybe he's in debt up to his eyeballs like you are, and it was such a brutal comeuppance, but being smart and coming up with all these comebacks to him wasn't helpful. What I found since then is that people who aren't so concerned with being right or being the smartest guy in the room like I was, just raise their prices and make more money. But for me, just my personality and my, I got in my own way by trying to make it much harder than it had to be. And I still took, even with the great mentorship that I had, I still took too long to make the changes that I needed to make. I'll tell you this. I love this quote. When the pain of the current condition becomes greater than the fear of change, you'll change. And that's what happened to me. I was absolutely okay going out of business, nobody ever calling me. I was sure that I was right and he was wrong. I was going to raise my prices and not make any money. And so I quintupled my prices. We went from like $30 an hour to $150 an hour. We stopped. We had a little point where I actually charged $112.50 an hour. This is back in 1989. Now, I don't know what that 50 cents was doing for me, but that was my first
It
stop.
felt good.
And then we went to 150 and then 200 and then 250 and then on and on. And I tell you, I have never told a contractor they're charging too much. You're only going to be limited by your self-esteem and your ability to communicate the value of your services. This is what I've learned since then. I know I'm cutting to the chase, right? But this is what all came from this mentorship. And then as we started to raise our prices, money buys options. We got into debt as fast as we got out of debt as fast as I'd gotten into it. And now we finally have some options. So I turn to my husband, Hot Rod, Ron, and I say, okay, we have some money now. We can pay our guys more. We can pay ourselves. I can get paid. This is great. What do you want to do? What do you want? Now, this is the quintessential business planning question. So I'm thinking, we could grow. We're in Park City. We could go to Salt Lake. I grew up there. I knew where all the rich people lived. I knew what I could do. I had just trucks and numbers and millions and everything mapped out. And my husband says, you know what? I want to work all by myself. And so I bring that up because I'm going to come off in this podcast as like this know-it-all, because I kind of am. But what I've also learned is you have the right and responsibility to do what you want in this world. And he and I just never had the same vision. And it took like getting enough money, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like at least just stop the bleeding for a minute so that you can discuss some bigger items. And the bigger items is, what did we want out of this business? And the reality of it was his business, not mine. And so he gets to decide what he wants to do. And it was, at the time, it was very emotional. But now it just seems like the most natural thing. Why were we even trying to work together when we just had different reasons and whys and missions in life? It's okay to not work together is another thing you might get out of this podcast. If like you're waiting for your dad to die so that you can do things your way, you can do what you want in this life, and everybody will be okay by and by. Thanksgiving will be all right. You'll meet up again at dinner. There's some emotional things that you might have to go through, but my work as a result of this personal experience has been focused on, number one, helping people get to and operate from a known financial position, charge the right price, make money doing this honorable work. That's number one. And the number two thing that happened to me as a result of this experience was business planning. What do you want? Why do you want it? How are you going to make that happen? By when? Asking and answering those big questions has been an obsession and an area of coaching and teaching for me. And I am now just like pleased as punch to be able to do that in my franchise. I fail every day in those two tasks, but that's what obsesses me. And those are the things that I'm really good. That's my purpose in life. And I've just had this career since we sold our company to our employees back in 1995. The trucks still roll in Park City, Utah. It makes me super proud. But Hot Rod went on to do all sorts of cool things on his own that he wanted to do. And I've had that opportunity as well. I always wanted to work with a bigger company. I grew a plumbing franchise, and now we're growing this drain cleaning franchise, Zoom Drain. And, it's just the sky is the limit right now. I've got an awesome team. We've got 19 locations across the country. And, I just feel like the world is my oyster. So, I'm happy to share what I've learned. And I want you to come on my podcast so that you can do most of the talking.
Well, you've had so much experience and so much success that it's hard not to keep talking because you've seen it all. So I enjoyed that. That was a fun sort of journey down memory lane. So along the way, my guess is from the independent days to the franchisor days in different industries, similar but different industries, you've seen what works, what doesn't work, and hopefully learned from some of the things that you've experienced. And so everyone listening to this, for the most part, is either a franchisee or an entrepreneur that owns a home service business. And so someone that's inside a home, cleaning it, whatever. The trade gets so connected to our business that the business sometimes feels like it's sort of secondary. But I think we can all agree that's not right. The primary thing in your business is the business, and the trade comes sort of secondary to that. Obviously, it's important to do a great job, but the trade may have been what attracted you to the industry, but it's not what's going to keep you in the business or the industry. So I want to talk about ways to prevent problems, ways to fix problems. So what are some of those pitfalls that you have seen other entrepreneurs, whether they're franchisees or not, experience inside their business? And we'll talk about how to fix some of those things in a minute.
Perhaps this is just because it was the biggest mistake I made, and I see it everywhere I go. There's an expression, to the man with a hammer, everything is a nail. You got to get priced right. If you don't have enough money, you tend to do things that are not, they're not going to help you grow your business. And at worst, they can cause you to do things that are really detrimental, like not pay your payroll taxes. So like having enough money to make some mistakes, to take the training, to go to seminar, to buy a better truck, to get nicer tools, to recruit. Everything that you want to do to grow your business is going to cost your customer something. So getting priced right, just, making sure that dollar amount is big enough is critical. So get your prices right. And I see that people are trying to make stone soup all the time. There's just not enough there to do what they want to do. Another thing that I would say is doing it all themselves. And this comes from people who are technicians, and they're the only guy who can do it right, the only guy who will work that hard. That is a model. And you have to decide if you want to be a one-man band or if you want to grow a crew. If you want to grow a crew, you got to learn to let somebody else do it and help you and give them a game to play and honor and respect them and let them make the mistakes that you were going to make anyway. But, hanging on to everything yourself is another problem. And I guess the third thing I would say is just, again, based on my story, is not being clear on what you want. So being willing to work off of a business plan. If you have no plan, you're really at the whim of your team members, your family, your customers every day. And at some point you might get resentful. So those are the things that I see over and over again with people who are just like aging beyond their years, in a business of their own.
All of that resonates, but that last point really resonates because I have seen so many other entrepreneurs, again, in the home services industry, thrive in a lot of cases and not thrive in some other cases. And the world view is usually what makes that definition occur, And so it's oftentimes, even when someone makes money, if they're not making money the way they want to, it's not success, it's not fun. And so when I look back on my life here in this space, I'm going on 18 years here at Two Maids and a Mop. And early on, it was a struggle. I mean, it was a complete struggle to hire people, to get people to hire us, to pay the bills, to figure out how we're going to make tomorrow happen. All those things were really painful. But at the end of the day, I wanted it. I actually embraced it. I wanted to experience that. It was all a part of something, what I felt was going to be much bigger later on. Thankfully, it's worked out and it's worked as well as we planned. But I know that not everyone wants that. Not everyone believes that going through pain is fun, So how does an entrepreneur who's in that business, maybe they at one point said, this is my dream. I want to start a business and buy a yacht, down the road. But now that I'm in this business, I don't know if I want it. How do you ask yourself that question and then really get a real answer? And then what do you do with it if it's the wrong answer?
I think you need some time to think. One of the things that I learned from our partner dying, literally the last words that Yock said to me, if I don't do it myself, it'll never get done. And then he died and stuff got done. And we think we're so irreplaceable. The world goes on. When I left the last job that I worked with, the other franchise that I grew, I set myself up. There was a good person in place. I spent some time making sure that there would be a smooth transition. I ended my tenure at that company, and the next day, nobody called me. It goes on. And so having that kind of awareness, there's going to be moments in your life you get sick, you get hurt, stuff moves on. And that can be such a great lesson. So spending a little time, go on a retreat. If you don't need to have a big devastating moment to learn this lesson, that would be even better. So if you were to go on a retreat with you, if you're involved in a family business, the owners, the family members, and put your phones in the car, go to a hotel room, hash it out and ask these questions. What do we want? Why do we want that? Is it the same for all of us? By when? How much? What will this look like? A vision board can help if you're that kind of a person. An essay of my perfect life is another good exercise. Just honoring and recognizing that what you want is valid and, in fact, the key to finding real purpose in life, or at least that's what I've experienced. It takes a little time to do that. So I would recommend a corporate retreat to get yourself centered again. Then go back into the business with a list of hows, we're going to do this, and this project, and I'm not exactly sure what the details are. Will you help me? So you go back to your business, you paint the picture. If you decide at that retreat that you're going to do two separate businesses or not work together, that's a solid outcome. That's fine. If you decide you're on the same page, you go back to the company and you share that vision, right? So that now your team knows that there's some point to all this and that their help is now sought. The hows, the dreaded hows is what Mike Dooley calls them. That's where you get tripped up, especially if you're smart and you can't see your way through the next 18 steps, then you don't bother. Just let them do it.
Right.
Right. I don't know.
So if you're cool with this, I'm going to ask you just 2 or 3 really quick rapid fire questions because I know
okay. All right.
Time here. So I'm going to start with the most nerdiest question of all, because you said something earlier that was intriguing to me, but you also, like me, are a podcast and book nerd. So what are some key podcasts and or books that you would recommend to the audience that they have to listen to or read?
Okay. I think if you have not read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, that's you got to. It's essential reading for anyone who wants to hang up their shingle and go into business. The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, required. Right now, we're doing a leadership class at Zoom Drain on the book It's Your Ship by D. Michael Abrashoff, how he took the worst ship in the Navy and made it the best ship in the Navy. And I'm absolutely loving it. It's all about employee empowerment and, getting your team in on it and what you can do to foster that kind of community and those relationships. Love him. Love it. So those would be 2. And then I got a kind of off the wall podcast for you. It's the Rich Roll podcast. And I'll tell you why I love it. He's a recovering guy and an extreme athlete. And so am I. I'm not nearly as extreme as he is, but I'm a recovering person. And I love sports and athletics as metaphors for what you're capable of and how, and it also gives you time when you're working out. It gives you time to reflect and think and be by yourself. So he has really unusual, extreme and intense people on his podcast. And I eat that up. I heard this quote from a friend of mine today who said, leaders always find a way. Leaders always find a way. You might not win the first, second, third, fourth, fifth time, but if you are clear on what you want, you're going to go over, under, around, and through, and you'll find a way. And usually the way is provided by the fine people who are already there, already working the front lines, already making things happen every day if you just honor and recognize them.
That's such a great quote. I love it. All right. So a couple more quick questions. All right.
Okay.
Those are
I'm loving this. Thanks, Ron.
I'm going to dive into both of those things you just mentioned myself. So,
okay.
Second, you've been in the franchise space in two different brands. You know home services. You also know what makes success and maybe what doesn't make success. And unfortunately, there's always a bottom 10% and there's always a top 10% in every franchise network. Hopefully the divide's not too wide, but there's always a bottom 10 and top 10. In your mind, your opinion, just based on your experience, what is the difference between that top 10 versus bottom 10?
I think it comes down to speed. All right. Like how fast you're going to embrace the system, how fast you're going to make the recommendations. With franchising, there's this paradox. It's got to be at once standardized, consistent, the same experience for every customer. And as a franchisor, I've got to enforce that. I'm on the lookout for rogue behavior. And at the same time, I need to watch for the entrepreneurial franchisee who's got a better idea, an improvement to the system. It's dynamic and ever changing and evolving. Now, the deliciousness of that paradox, those two things that seem to be at odds with each other and are indeed both true, is that creates a dynamic, that creates great. And what happens with the franchisees in my system, or that I've noticed, I've worked with tons of franchisees, is that they embrace the systems and they try them as is. And then when they come back with the improvement, it is with that education, because our system, not unlike yours, if I add up all the hours that went into it, we've got 100 years of proven system in our manuals. It works. So try that. Even if you can outthink it, just try it the way it's built. And then let's stand on its shoulders and make it better. I think that if you, especially as a technician, if you can find the 1%, 5% of the times that the system in the manual isn't going to work and you obsess on that, it slows you down. Does that make sense? Like you can charge nothing. Have you ever done a job for free for your mother or the church or whatever, and they still complain about it? Right. So you can't charge so little that they still don't complain. So you might as well make some money. Like, again, and is it the prices or is it your ability to add value? Do we need to implement the sales training? Do we have to come up with better marketing? I got to tell you, when my trucks arrive, the customer's going to be looking out the window and going, oh, they're going to be expensive. I want them to know we're premium priced, and now they should expect premium service. That I might fail there, but I'm going to charge a premium price. And I have franchisees who have had challenges embracing our pricing, and that they get to charge whatever they want. But on my watch, I'm going to keep coming back to the numbers. How's that going to cover your costs? How are you going to be able to offer great benefits to your team members, pay them better than anybody else, have nice uniforms, good tools, safety training, operational training? How is that going to happen unless we charge the customer for it? So, I think embracing the systems, including recommendations for your selling price, is going to shorten your process and help you get big enough to start realizing the rewards that caused you to join up in the first place.
Oh, I love it. You said so many nuggets in this interview. I got to do one more because you just are so amazing with your experience here. All right, let's go back in time.
I'm in. Let's do one more.
I'm going to let you off the hook after this. So you've had. Well,
I'll come back and you're going to come on my podcast. How does that
deal.
sound?
Okay. I love talking about myself too. So let's do this. So you've had the unique, I think, opportunity to kind of start over. You've had multiple experiences as a business owner, and now you started your own drain company. And I'm assuming that you've learned a lot over the years, and you're using that experience to create this great brand now. But most people don't really get that second opportunity. So if you do get that second opportunity, or even if this is your first, if you could go back in time and you could do just one thing differently for this new business, and for any business for that matter, what would that one thing be?
Okay, so I'm going to let myself off the hook with this. I have always found that the worst things become the best things, and the best things have an edge. So it really doesn't matter. I think I might sweat it less, but it'll be fine. Short of killing a man, and that can happen. Like, we live in a dangerous industry for sure.
Right.
The stuff that I've sweated, I didn't need to.
Well,
don't
I
make
can.
emergencies out of non-emergencies. I would say really my reaction to the stuff that kept me up at night, that broke my heart, that I took personally, it all turns out okay.
It's sometimes we get so caught up in ourselves that we think that we can't walk away. We have to sweat the small stuff. But I'm just coming off a vacation myself with my family, and for the first time that I can ever remember, I totally unplugged, and you know what? Things went well. In fact, we thrived during that week, and the world didn't blow up, and I didn't really get involved. And so it was both great and kind of not so great too, because I kind of want to be that important, but it was really cool experience to see life could go on without me. And I think every entrepreneur at some point, obviously you got to get your hands dirty early on. You don't want to start a business and 2 weeks later, take a break. You got to get your hands dirty and do the job. But there's certainly a time and place where other people can do it for you, and you don't have to be so important to every X and O within the business. So, Ellen, you've been great.
I've loved this. Thank you, Ron.
Like I said, you are a true rock star in this home service industry, and it's an honor and privilege to have a chance to interview you today. I'd love for other people to have a chance to reach out and connect with you. What can they do to talk with you down the road?
Come visit me either at the franchise site, zoomdrain.com. We love referral partners. If there's a Zoom Drain in your market area, we would love to help a sister or brother out. And if you want to know more about business planning or helping, you and your team get a handle on the numbers, on the money, honey, go to ellenrohr.com, ELLENROHR.com.
Awesome.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you so much, Ellen. You were great. And I can't wait to talk to you on your own podcast. We'll talk again.
I will do that. I'll send you over some info about that. And thanks for accommodating me in hotel life today.
Hey, it's all good. All
okay,
right. Talk
thanks.
again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Beth Lovett in Business Development. If you enjoyed this episode, then please share with your friends, and don't forget to tune in to the next episode of Cleaning Up. Have you ever wondered if you wanted to be in business for yourself? If so, then don't hesitate to give me a call at 205-789-8027 or email me at bethl@ineedamaid.com. And if you just want a window shop, then you can see us online at twomaidsfranchise.com.